What do you say, everybody? With Andrew Bone, I'm Mick Gillespie. We're going to talk recruiting tonight here on Bama Insider and the Bama Insider YouTube channel. Alabama last Wednesday, Bone, was taking the nation by storm yet again with the #1 recruiting class. But it's the early signing period, so there's still some work left to be done, possibly for this Crimson Tide team. But before we get into any of that, congratulations. You did a great job covering everything. It was fun to follow the recruiting, the recruiting experience, and then obviously see Alabama land a lot of those players. A lot of hard work put in there.
Oh yeah, we had a fun day, didn't we? I thought if people who are watching, I hope they enjoyed our live all day recruiting show that we had on signing day. I call it signing day now. I don't even call it. I call February the late signing period now, but this is the real signing period when pretty much everybody signs. There's some schools that didn't get all of their guys to sign last week, but Alabama did. That was a huge deal for Alabama. Having the #1 class going into signing day and getting all those guys to go ahead and make their decisions. Now, obviously, this is a weird year because of COVID. You can't take official visits. So, there weren't schools, really trying to say, hey, come take an official visit in January with us. I'm sure they were still trying to get them on campus at some point. But, Alabama, pretty much, I think, in my opinion, has locked in the #1 recruiting class in the country, even in February. I think this is an outstanding group of kids, offensive and defensive side of the ball, but certainly one of the the best classes that Nick Saban and his staff have been able to put together. You got to give a lot of credit, especially to this assistant coaching staff, just because of everything that they had to go through with COVID, not being able to bring kids on campus for official visits, not being able to evaluate kids, like they like to. They like to get kids on campus during the summer, work them out. Throughout the spring, we see so many offers that get extended. A lot of those offers are, hey, come to camp. We want to see you. We want you to work out. Can't commit, but we want you to come to camp and work out. So they didn't get a chance to do that this year. So you're really just kind of going off of film, maybe some workout highlights and stuff like that. So I'm still kind of interested to see when all these guys get on campus, who did we get really wrong in the rankings? Who did we get really right? Because I think it's going to be one of those years where it's maybe a little screwed up just based on not really being able to evaluate kids this year like you really want to. But I think for the most part, this is one heck of a recruiting class. It's probably going to be one of those classes that we're going to be talking about for a very long time. And like I said, even though we didn't get to properly evaluate these kids. I mean, there's a lot of kids that we got a chance to see this football season. Saw a lot of highlight films, and I don't think there's anybody in this recruiting class. There's been kids in past recruiting classes where I've been like, yeah, maybe they shouldn't have recruited that guy. And,
right.
And I don't want to name any names, of course. And we've seen a lot of those type players end up in the transfer portal, or maybe they end up falling out of the class. And you're just like, kind of felt like that was going to happen. There's really nobody in this year's class that I feel that way about. I mean, I think Alabama, felt very good about each one of these guys that they recruited. Of course, there were, some guys that they certainly wanted that they missed out on, but they pretty much struck gold on every kid that they heavily recruited. I mean, there was probably, I would say, about 80% of the guys that they really wanted in the class, they were able to get. And, some of the guys that they didn't get, some of them were long shots, and most of them were out-of-state kids, whether they were in Texas or Louisiana or, maybe Florida. Some of those kids were, it was going to be tough to get them. But Alabama did a great job this year, and I think, the staff should be commended for what they were able to do.
Yeah, no doubt about it. He's Andrew Bone. I'm Mick Gillespie. Thumbs up. Subscribe to our channel as we talk Alabama recruiting here on the Alabama Rivals site, Bama Insider and BamaInsider.com. And we're doing it right now on YouTube. Yeah, I mean, look, it was really a great day for Alabama because no one, defected. There were no guys that left. And at the same time, they took two players from their arch rival, LSU. Those were two of really the big stories, although LSU was able to kind of swing back and, and pick up a couple guys as well. Besides Alabama, who else do you think did really well in recruiting in the SEC?
Well, first, let me give a shout out to Brent. Thanks for sneaking out of work, and thanks for the tip, man. Really appreciate that. And also to Bombs, you're always coming through. So thank you so much. Merry Christmas to you. Looking at the SEC, I mean, even though LSU lost a couple of big commitments, I still think that they did okay because they landed the number one player in the country, Mason Smith. I mean, anytime you get the number one player in the country, obviously, many people felt like he was going to go to LSU throughout the entire process. Louisiana kid, visited Baton Rouge several times. Even made a couple trips to Baton Rouge this football season. But with everything that was going on at LSU, you just didn't know for sure if that was going to be a slam dunk for him to go to LSU, but they ended up keeping him home. They were able to keep Sage Ryan on board. I really thought that Texas A&M put together a very strong recruiting class. I think especially on the defensive line, there were two guys that Alabama heavily recruited, Tumise Delia and also Shamar Turner. Shamar Turner, maybe one of the most underrated players in the whole country. Number 27 overall. Number 27 overall, you're underrated. It says something, but I think that that guy's got a chance to be just an absolute special player here in the next couple of years. But I think Alabama certainly would have liked to add another defensive lineman. There's still some guys that are out there that they're heavily recruiting, but I think that those are some classes that really kind of stood out to me. I think Missouri kind of stood out to me just because of, first-year head coach. I think that Coach Rinkowitz did a great job, pulling in a top 20 recruiting class from Mizzou. That's tough to do. So that was kind of maybe my surprise class of the SEC. And obviously, things are going pretty bad at Auburn around signing day in terms of guys that were flipping and or decommitting, and then obviously Gus Malzahn getting fired, that didn't help their case. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see what Coach Harsin is going to be able to come in and do at Auburn in the short time span before the next signing period.
Yeah, I heard that, and you can kind of comment on this, but that Auburn was keeping some spots open for transfers. And I guess that's kind of, a new strategy now, right? Yeah,
I mean, for transfers, they're going to count as an initial scholarship. So, they're going to count as part of this, recruiting class. So there's going to be, definitely some spots available at Auburn. Heck, maybe even Alabama's going to have a spot or two for a transfer. You just never know what's going to happen over the course of the next month and a half. If Alabama's going to be able to get anybody else on board, you always kind of want to save room just in case a really, really good player jumps into that transfer portal and you're able to recruit them, potentially, bring them in and make a big impact on your football team.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, well, let's talk about Alabama. You've got this initial signing class. Obviously, players can sign up until February, right? In the February. So who's out there? How many spots does Alabama have? And are there some targets that are still in play for the Crimson Tide?
Yeah, absolutely. And everybody keeps asking me, how many more will Alabama take? And I think everybody has kind of in their mind it's going to be two, no more than two more guys in this class. I'm not there yet. And I kind of think that Alabama's still trying to work their magic, work the numbers, and the fact is, a lot of guys are enrolling early. You got, I think, 15 early enrollees, and you can back count a couple of those guys. So Alabama's going to, try to see who's still out there, who they can possibly land. There's three guys that I keep talking about. Brian Thomas, 4-star wide receiver from Louisiana. And people keep saying, well, Alabama has 4 Rivals 100 wide receivers who just signed last week. They don't need another wide receiver. Well, they don't necessarily need another wide receiver, but they love this kid. They love Brian Thomas. They've recruited him for a very long time. He's still one of their top priority targets. And, if he wants to jump on board, they won't say no to him. So they're going to continue to push for him. Now, with 4 wide receivers who signed with Alabama, that may impact his decision a little bit. That may, tell him, hey, maybe I need to look somewhere else. It didn't sign that many, top receivers. And obviously, LSU's heavily recruiting him. They would like to get him on board, especially after JoJo Earl flipped to Alabama on signing day. Texas A&M, very high on his list. So he's going to let it kind of drag out. I think he's going to wait until February to decide. So that's somebody that we will continue to follow. Another top target for Alabama is Terrion Arnold. Rivals 100 safety defensive back from Tallahassee. We've talked about Terrion Arnold for a long time. We've talked about him since last football season. I mean, this has been a premier target for Alabama. The coaching staff, they love this kid. They really think that he's an instant impact type player in the Tide secondary, and certainly somebody that they would love to add. He put out a top 5 a couple weeks ago. 2 of the schools a little surprising because we knew it was going to be Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. Those were kind of the definite top 3. But then he also added Texas A&M and LSU. A little surprised by those schools. I still think it's going to be one of the top 3 schools in the end. And Alabama's pushing extremely hard for him. They'd love to add his commitment. And people ask me, well, which way is he leaning right now? It doesn't matter where he's leaning right now. It matters where he's leaning a couple days before he's announcing a decision. But that being said, I still think Alabama has a great chance to land Terrion Arnold. And then the final guy that I'd love to mention is JT Tuilamola, the 5-star defensive lineman from Seattle, Washington area. He's certainly a guy that Alabama has continued to make up ground with. I think they were on the outside early on in his recruitment. Now they're strongly in it, along with Ohio State, Oregon. He also has Washington and USC in his top 5, but it really looks like he's probably going to end up at Alabama, Ohio State, Oregon. And that's just, kind of the feel that it is right now. And he's trying to take some visits. He wants to get to all these places before he makes a decision. Has even said that he may not even he may not sign in February, may drag it out through the spring so that he can visit these schools and enjoy the recruiting process a little bit. So we'll see if he's able to make a trip to Tuscaloosa. If he makes a trip to Alabama, I think Alabama's going to have an excellent shot with him. And, like I said earlier, they'd love to add another defensive lineman in this class. Now, what happens if Alabama doesn't get any of these guys? I don't know if they're necessarily going to go after, really anybody else. I mean, there may be a target or 2 that pop up, but you got to remember, we're about to enter the transfer season. There's going to be a lot of names that enter that transfer portal here over the course of the next month. So I think that Alabama is really going to look, in that regard and, try to find somebody, whether that's a defensive lineman or or a defensive back. I certainly think those are 2 positions to really watch. But then one more guy I want to mention before I let you ask me some more questions is there's a guy that's going to be announcing his decision on Friday. His name is Jaden Roberts. He's a offensive lineman from North Shore High School in Houston, Texas, one of the top high schools in the Lone Star State. He's going to make a decision at 3 p.m. on Friday. I almost said he flipped. Didn't flip. He decommitted from Auburn last Wednesday. There was a lot of speculation that he was about to announce for Alabama. Did not announce for Alabama. Decided to wait. He's going to be announcing on Friday. My prediction is that he ends up committing to Alabama. If he ends up committing to Alabama, that would be the 5th offensive lineman in Alabama's recruiting class. I think they've really, if they end up getting him, they've done a great job on the offensive line this year. It's a position that they really wanted to reload at, and certainly somebody that they like a lot as a more than an interior lineman. That I thought they did a great job, recruiting tackles in this year's class with Tommy Brockermeyer, J.C. Latham, T.J. Ferguson, somebody who can move around, play just about any of the offensive line positions. But this is a guy who's, in my opinion, is a straight up guard and somebody that they could really use, and somebody that they really liked a lot throughout the entire process.
Appreciate all the super chats as you guys watch and hang out. Andrew Bone and Mick Gillespie on a Tuesday night talking recruiting. Alabama, #1 class so far. There's still some targets out there. We've been kind of getting into that as well. We're going to take your questions and kind of get into that, here towards the end of the show. Hey, give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to the Bama Insider YouTube channel. We appreciate all of you guys for joining us tonight and talking about Alabama recruiting. A ton of momentum. So get those questions ready for Bone. it just sounds like Alabama has this endless amount of space for guys because here's another guy, he decommitted from Auburn and now, possibly coming to Alabama. How many players can they put in this class? Is there a number?
Well, like I said, I think we're going to see some back counters, to last year. So Alabama, in my opinion, it's going to be hard for them to say no to some guys, especially Terran Arnold, JT Tuamola, Brian Thomas. Those are all guys that they've heavily recruited for a long time. Now they may get into January and kind of think, all right, we got to slow it down. We're not going to do anything here. But in my opinion, those are guys that they're heavily targeting. And if they get one or two of those guys, they're going to be very happy. And, like we just mentioned, Jaden Roberts is somebody that, we've talked about and I feel like is going to, jump on Alabama's recruiting class here this week. So that's another name. So I always tell people, I say this every year, don't worry about the numbers. We don't need to worry about the numbers. Let Alabama worry about the numbers because they're the ones that are having to, move some things around and kind of figure it all out. Worry about the guys that Alabama's heavily pursuing, and everybody knows who they're heavily pursuing, who we keep talking about, and it usually works itself out, because Alabama's not going to get everybody. Somebody asked me last week, well, what if 2 weeks ago, what if Alabama or what if Shamar Turner, Temisi Adelie, JT Tuamola, Tyreek Sapp, what if all these guys want to jump on board with Alabama's recruiting class? It's very hypothetical because Alabama's not going to get all those guys, and they haven't gotten any of them yet. So, or 3 of them went elsewhere, but JT's still out there. So just don't worry about it. Let Alabama worry about it. And I know we got some questions coming in. One that I wanted to address real quick, just because I know it's been a hot topic here lately, is Kamran Wheaton, 5-star running back. Out of Texas, named top 2, Alabama, Oklahoma, about a month ago, said that he was going to announce a decision on December the 23rd. There's some speculation that he may not announce tomorrow. If he announces tomorrow, Oklahoma, I feel 100%. It's going to be Oklahoma if he announces tomorrow. But, there is some talk that he could wait. A lot of people thought that he told everyone that he was going to sign last week. I don't think he signed. I think he's held off from signing for some reason. He's had a very interesting recruitment, very mysterious. We haven't really, had a chance to even really speak to him before. I mean, this is a guy who just shuts it down, has not really talked much throughout his entire recruitment. He just basically, posts who his favorites are, and you just kind of got to go from there. And, obviously we talked to all of our sources, and we talked to people in Texas to kind of figure out, what's going on, talk to people in Oklahoma, kind of figure out, how they're feeling on it. All signs point to Oklahoma. And if, like I said, if he keeps with his announcement tomorrow, very confident it's Oklahoma. But if he decides to push things back, if he decides to wait and signs in February, wants to take some visits, you never know what may happen. Alabama doesn't necessarily need a running back in this class. They like Kamran Wheaton, always have. But Alabama signed 3 running backs in 2020. 2 of those guys have, played a little bit this year and looked pretty good in Jace McClellan and Roydell Williams. So, I can see Alabama kind of passing on a running back this year, and then just kind of try to load up next year, try to get 2 or 3 guys maybe in next year's recruiting class. So let's see what happens, and really interested though to see what happens tomorrow with Kamran Wheaton. Will he officially announce a decision, or will he potentially announce that he's going to delay it? So we'll kind of wait and see what happens there. But like I said, if he announces tomorrow, Oklahoma.
Yep. He's Andrew Bone. I'm Mick Gillespie. We're talking recruiting with Andrew Bone here on the Alabama rival site, Bamainisder. And don't forget, guys, it's a great time to get a subscription to Bamainisder.com. Bone posts updates and nuggets and all kind of stories on the website throughout the year. Keep you updated on Alabama's recruiting effort. Tony Tsoukalas follows the team. Kyle Henderson, he's got stories on there, and it's really a fantastic site. And we also appreciate you guys being here with us on the Bama Insider YouTube channel. And as you hang out with us tonight, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. This thing has just been fire, man. Like, since I jumped on board, we're just picking up more people, and you guys are making this really a fantastic place to catch up on the latest Alabama news. All right, let me go back to the message board again, Bone. Any news on Eric Gilbert?
Yeah, not really. I don't think we're going to see really any news on him until he jumps in the transfer portal, if that happens. Obviously, there's been a lot of speculation, a lot of talk about him doing that. I think most people expect him to jump into the portal, but in terms of Alabama, I haven't really heard anything, for Alabama. Obviously, a lot of Alabama fans are going to probably automatically think that, with Alabama being probably the number 2 school on his list when he announced his commitment to LSU last year, that Alabama, has got a chance to potentially land him once he gets into the portal. I just haven't heard anything, positive for Alabama. I think if he gets into the portal at some point, it seems like Georgia, has the advantage there, but we'll see. I mean, once that guy gets into the portal, Alabama can recruit him. So we'll see if something comes to light there. But as of right now, wouldn't expect him, transferring to Alabama.
What are there any players that Alabama is, could potentially lose as far as transfers go that you've heard about?
I haven't. Of course, I've been so locked in on this 2021 recruiting class that I hadn't really paid much attention. Tony probably has a name or two. I don't, but I think that once we start seeing some guys, there's always going to be guys who enter the portal, guys who sitting on third team, second, even second team who may know that they're not going to be playing here much. Maybe somebody has a grade issue. There's always going to be somebody who enters the portal every single year, even from Alabama. So, I would certainly expect somebody to at some point during the spring, maybe. But I also think, on the flip side of that, I think Alabama's interested in, like I said earlier, I think they're interested in some guys who are potentially going to enter the portal. And, don't really want to talk too much about those guys until some guys enter the portal, but I think Alabama would be, very interested in potentially a defensive back, maybe a defensive lineman. It just all depends on who enters this portal. I think we're going to see more kids enter the portal than ever before, this cycle.
How about this guy, Jaden Roberts?
Yeah, we talked about Jaden earlier a little bit. It's going to be announcing that decision on Friday at 3 p.m. Really like Alabama's chances there. I made a prediction last week on signing day of Jaden Roberts to Alabama after he decommitted from Auburn. Still feel pretty confident in that prediction.
Ty wants to know who you compare Dallas Turner to. Would you compare him to Kyle Pitts? Kyle Pitts is a good ball player, huh?
Yeah, Dallas Turner, I'm really interested to kind of see, how much bigger he gets. He's 6'5", 250 pounds right now. He's kind of the size of Terrell Lewis, the size he was when he was at Alabama. Is he going I'm interested to see, will he stay at that size? Or once he gets to Alabama and gets in that strength and conditioning program, will he potentially add on 40 pounds, 50 pounds, and, be a Jonathan Allen type. When Jonathan Allen first got to Alabama, he was 6'3", 200 and, about 250 pounds. And he gained, shot up to about 300 pounds, and obviously, won every defensive award you could. So I'm interested to see what happens with Dallas, because, he was about 220 last year, gained another 30 pounds and hasn't really missed a beat. Coming off the edge. So this is an elite player. He does remind me a little bit of Terrell Lewis right now, in terms of his size. So we'll see how much he develops and gains some weight. And I'm sure, that strength and conditioning team of David Ballou and Matt Ray are just itching to get to work with him.
Yeah, and people were worried he might not sign with Alabama. That was on signing day. The one guy people just, on our site, they just kept asking, hey, when's the letter coming? When's the letter coming? Because, he brings so much talent and really excitement to the Alabama fan base.
Yeah, I think anytime, anytime players don't sign right at 7 or 8 a.m. in the morning and they stretch it out throughout the afternoon, fans get a little bit nervous. And, I tried to tell everybody this last week that, most of the guys in Alabama signing class turned in their LOI on Wednesday morning. Even though it didn't get announced until later, some of them later on in the morning or in the afternoon, most of them had turned in their LOIs, including Dallas. It was just all about, letting these kids kind of have their moment, whether they were having a ceremony at their high school or at their home, at a restaurant, wherever it may be. A lot of these kids were having signing day ceremonies. So Alabama waited until after these guys did their ceremony and then announced the signees. So I was not concerned about Dallas heading into signing day. I really wasn't concerned about anybody. The only player that I thought might wait was Damon Payne, the number 2 defensive tackle in the country. And the only problem there was he was wanting to wait until February to sign with some of his other teammates that are going Division II, Division III. So he wanted to wait, sign with those guys. But I think Alabama said, hey, we want to get everybody on board right now so we don't have to worry about anything until February. And he said, hey, I'm signing with you guys. I'll go ahead and do it. So there was nothing to worry about there.
Jonathan wants to know if you think Blackshire is going to have size issues.
Yeah, for running backs that meet him in the hole. I mean, this is a guy. I mean, dang this is a physical linebacker. I mean, he's 6. He's listed on the site at like 6'2", 250 pounds, but I think he's a little under. I think his size isn't really that. I think it's off a little bit. And I think he's lost a little bit of weight. Remember Reuben Foster, arrived in Tuscaloosa at 250 pounds. And that was a concern. But Alabama was able to, kind of trim that weight down. And, he played fast, played physical throughout his entire senior season, plays for one of the top high school football programs in the country. So I'm not concerned about Kendrick Blackshire. I think he's got the, great size, great speed, and quickness. He's going to be just fine. I don't think he's stiff. Some of these bigger linebackers, you kind of, you worry about, and I get where he's coming from, on that question. But I think this is going to be an outstanding football player in Tuscaloosa.
Alabama did an incredible job recruiting again. Who were the assistants that you feel like got out there and really made an impact in this class? I know it takes the entire team, but if you had an all-bone team for Alabama, and you can pick like 3 of these guys, who were the all-bone team for Alabama?
Well, I think you got to first look at Charles Huff. Alabama's running backs coach did an unbelievable job this year, especially landing guys like J.C. Latham, Dallas Turner, Ja'Cory Brooks, Damon Payne. I mean, that's 4 of the top 36 players in the country that Charles Huff is in charge of their recruitment. So you got to give some mad props to him. That's probably the best. He's probably going to be the in my opinion, the Rivals.com National Recruiter of the Year. He also flipped Devontae Smith, from Ohio State. So it seemed like all of those guys all committed within like 4-week time span too. It was like boom, 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 boom. Because every single day, it seemed like all in a row we were talking about, Charles Huff again, Charles Huff again, Charles Huff again. And he just did a great job. Carl Scott, Alabama cornerbacks coach, I give a lot of love to him as well. Did a great job landing the Brockmeyer twins. Kool-Aid, Quincy McKinstry. I thought he did a really good job this year. And also Jeff Banks, Alabama's tight ends and special teams coach. Jeff Banks was brought in because he was known as a great recruiter and a great special teams coach. And, Alabama flipped him from Texas A&M. And, I think with the way that Alabama special teams has been playing, you got to give a lot of props to him on the field. But off the field, recruiting wise, I thought that he had a great class. Especially landing Ajay Hall and Christian Leary, 2 of the best wide receivers in the country.
Well, it was an incredible afternoon and evening for Alabama. And, obviously it just continues to go. He's Andrew Bone. I'm Mick Gillespie. Thumbs up as you watch here. We've got, 300 and how many people that are actually watching our show right now. So we should have 300 and however many thumbs up. And then for those of you that aren't here live and you pop on, we want to see your thumbs up as well. Subscribe to our channel as we're on the Alabama Rivals site, giving you the inside on Alabama recruiting. And right now it's the #1 recruiting class. So if you got any questions, I want you to go ahead and put those in the comment section. Are there any teams, Bone, that could sneak up and take this #1 recruiting spot away from Alabama at this point? And who?
Yeah, I don't see it. I mean, I think Alabama is in a pretty good position right now. There is going to be one final rankings update here in the next, I'd say, couple weeks. It's going to be, about third week in January when final rankings come out. But it's probably going to help Alabama because Keanu Coate is a 3-star, and he's going to move up, pretty high in the rankings. And I don't really see any Alabama commitments dropping in the rankings at all. You also may see Devontae Smith make a big move. So, those are some guys that I feel like are going to, even help Alabama's class even more. Now, obviously, we're still kind of watching Ohio State, kind of see, what may happen there. They still have JT Tuiamola, who they're, heavily pursuing and heavily recruiting, and, can they get him and potentially somebody else on board? So I think it's going to, probably require them to get, JT and at least one more big guy for them to make a serious run at Alabama. But with some of these guys moving up in Alabama's class next month, I think it's a done deal that Alabama's going to have the top recruiting class in the country yet again.
Yeah. Is there any changing of like the star status? And I mean, this is just my ignorance because I'm not an expert on recruiting, but do you guys have that set already, or is there anything that could change in that front?
Yeah. I mean, with Keanu Coate being a 3-star, he's 100%, in my opinion, going to be moved up to 4 and could potentially even move up into the Rivals 100.
Wow.
Devontae Smith is, somebody who, got his senior highlights out pretty late, after the, rankings were put together. So, I think the guys are going to evaluate his senior highlights and make a final decision on, whether he should be in the top, 250, which I believe he should be. I think he's a top 150 type player. That's how good he is. Anytime you're named Devontae Smith, you got to be pretty good.
You got to be in Alabama.
I'd rank him a 5-star, regardless. I mean, of course, it's pretty hard to live up to that name. But Smitty 2.0 said he's going to do his best to not let Smitty down.
Bone, before we wrap things up, what do you think about the Heisman race?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think that an Alabama player can win it. I think Smitty can win it.
Right. I mean, that's the understatement.
I went out on a limb there, didn't I? I think Smitty can win it. I really do. I just, the only hesitation I have is, is Smitty and Matt going to split these votes? And I mean, I'm telling you, Najee should be there. I mean, he's a special player. I think that, I don't know. I would invite Najee, to be honest with you. I think Najee could easily, win the Heisman, but I do think that this is Smitty's year. Will Trevor Lawrence, will he get some late votes? Are these votes going to be split between Mac and Smitty? So we'll see what happens, but my vote's for Smitty. I think he's going to win it.
Wow. You guys coming out strong there, huh?
Going out on a limb again.
Yeah.
He's only the betting favorite on all the sites. So, me saying, all right, I'm going to put my money down and see what happens.
I asked the guys that on Monday Night Quarterback, and Tony and Kyle and Trey and you all said Smitty. I said, look, it's a tough race. I mean, I think that without Smitty, then Mac's not in this, and without Mac, Smitty's not in this, and without both of them, Najee's not in this. But at the end of the day, Bone, I feel like this is really a testament to Alabama's offensive line. This is the best offensive line that I can ever remember Alabama having. I was texting Mike Johnson the other day, our buddy, and he was like, "Hey, this kind of reminds me of what was it, like 2012 or something." Like you talk about these offensive lines and how good they are. Alabama's had some really great offensive lines, and it's going to be interesting to see how they respond without Landon Dickerson. But the offensive line is why we have 3 guys that could potentially be in the Heisman, finalist pool.
Yeah, and I think it'll be a shame if these guys don't get every award that's out there. Dickerson with the Remington Award, Leatherwood getting the Outland. Obviously there's some other really good players out there, but these guys, are amazing. This is probably the best, Alabama offensive line that they've had during the Nick Saban era. I think that, they've been incredible. Obviously, that 2012 unit, pretty daggone good with, Anthony Steen and Warmack and Barrett and Fluker. I mean, that was a pretty incredible unit, but this is a special class as well. And, I certainly think that, all of them can win, their various awards. And, I think that, Joe Moore Award, I think they should be given the best offensive line in college football this year. So you got to give a lot of credit to Kyle Flood. Kyle Flood, I'll never forget. Somebody told me, when Alabama lost Brent Key to Georgia Tech and Coach Flood took over and became the offensive line coach, I had somebody tell me, they said, this is the best offensive line coach in college football.
Really?
He's incredible. People just don't understand it. Just give it a year or two, and you're going to see something. And 2 years later, they got the best offensive line in college football. Coach Flood just signed, the best offensive line class, in the 2021 class. So it's he's doing a pretty good job. I'm sure he's pretty happy and excited about working with with these kids that are going to be coming in here in the next few weeks. There's 4 of them, 4 signees all enrolling at Alabama in January.
He's Andrew Bone. I'm Mick Gillespie. We're talking recruiting and other stuff here on a Tuesday night. Bama Insider. Give us a thumbs up, guys. We really appreciate you being here on the Alabama Rivals site. Steve Sarkeesian was definitely flirted with by Auburn to be their head coach, and he elected to stick in Tuscaloosa. How does that help recruiting?
Yeah, if it gets announced that he's staying in Tuscaloosa for sure, and if he gets a pretty big raise, that's certainly going to help with recruiting. There's so many kids that they love Alabama's offense. I mean, it's one of the most fun offenses in the country to play in, and obviously they win a lot of games, and they want to be around. A lot of top recruits throughout the country want to be around other top players, and especially with this offensive line class that Alabama has coming in. I mean, these kids know, what's in store for the future. So knowing that, Coach Sark would still be there, would be huge, because, we've seen so many, assistant coaches in Tuscaloosa come and go, especially at the coordinator position, when coordinators taking head coaching jobs, and position coaches getting coordinator jobs elsewhere. And we just see so many guys leave. And, there was a time, what was that, 2 years ago, where it was like back-to-back mass exodus of coaches. And now you have a staff that's been there, that's familiar with each other, that's been there for the last couple of years. So I think that's huge for Alabama on the recruiting front, especially if you get these guys to stick on board, for the next couple of years. It'd be great for Alabama. Of course, Alabama's not hurting on the recruiting front too much right now. They're still getting it done. Nick Saban and the staff, but yeah, I mean, Coach Sark sticking around. It's it certainly attracts many offensive players, and you saw that in this year's recruiting class with the 4 Rivals 100 wide receivers that they signed. Jalen Milroe, the Rivals 100 quarterback. The offensive line, which is one of the best offensive line classes in the Rivals era. It's 2 kids that are in the top 10. You got to be really impressed with what they've done on the offensive side of the ball.
Look at James hitting you up with a super chat, Bone. Anyone in the 22 class we need to know about? And that sounds scary to me. I mean, as a graduate from way back, I don't feel that old, but when I see 22 up there, wow.
Yeah, 2022 is going to be interesting, because there hasn't been a lot of evaluations. They didn't get a chance to evaluate during the spring. They didn't get a chance to evaluate during the summer. So you're really kind of hoping once you get into 2021 that you can evaluate kids. You can bring them on campus for junior days. There's a lot of names out there, that Alabama's heavily recruiting that they're very interested in. There's some really good in-state players for next year that they're going after. But it's still everybody's still kind of in this evaluation stage. In my opinion, I don't want to name any names just yet, but I'll tell you in terms of position-wise what they're going to be going after. Running back. Running back's going to be a key for 2022 because Alabama's not going to sign a running back in this class. So got to go after some running backs. I think, interior offensive line, that's going to be a priority. I think if Alabama can go out, find an athletic tight end, somebody who can stretch the field, those are hard to find. People think those guys grow on trees. They don't. They're out there, but you got to go find them, and they're hard to come by. It seems like every single one of those type players ends up going to Iowa, or
Wisconsin.
Yeah, I mean those Big Ten programs get some good tight ends. So, and I think Alabama's going to go, after a very athletic tight end. I think, defensive wise, obviously they have a great defensive class this year, but still got to get some defensive linemen. I think a big focus next year is going to be on the defensive front and try to get some more, big guys in. And then, cornerback wise, Alabama strikes out on Terrion Arnold. Even though Terrion can play, a safety or corner, I think at cornerback is going to be a big priority position for Alabama in next year's class.
Well, Bone, it's been fun tonight. Anything else that you want to add before we bid everyone farewell?
Yeah, I think that's it. And, it's going to be an interesting month and a half, kind of figure out, what's going on, who's still out there, who will potentially visit Tuscaloosa. There's going to be a lot of evaluating. This is kind of the time, early January, right after the bowl games that, Alabama coaches go out on the road and, start hitting up high schools where a lot of top juniors are. And they're not going to be able to do that this year, with the recruiting dead period extended until April. So it's going to be interesting kind of see, what happens, any new offers that go out. I'm sure Alabama's evaluating a lot of guys now that signing day's over with. So a lot more evaluations, but we're going to be staying on top of it on Bama Insider. And I want to wish everybody who's watching our show, a very, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. We love doing this. We love coming on here and talking to you guys, telling y'all what's going on in the recruiting world every single week. So you guys have really made this channel something special, something we really enjoyed doing. So I hope you all have a great time with your families, and thank y'all so much for subscribing to the channel. And if you haven't subscribed to Bamainsider.com, go to Bamainsider.com. Sign up for a subscription this holiday season. Treat yourself. That's what I always like to tell people. Treat yourself. So, and you can talk to me just about, well, not just about, but every single day on Bamainsider.com. You got a question, come on there and ask me, in 20 minutes, and I'll respond pretty quickly to you. So I hope to see you guys on there, and tell me, hey, we're on the site because we saw the show on YouTube. So I hope to see you guys there.
Well, it's been a lot of fun. I'm Mick Gillespie. He's Andrew Bone. We appreciate all you guys for being part of our show tonight. Again, thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, the Bama Insider YouTube channel. Some of you guys are watching on Facebook. And if you are, hey, same thing, subscribe to the channel. I mean, it's really easy. Really, all you got to do is just hit that thumbs up button and be part of this. Bone and I will get back together Thursday. We'll be talking about, Alabama players and their process from, college, high school before that, and then some guys even in the NFL. It was really fun last week, Bone. So we'll do that on Thursday. We got a lot of other stuff coming up, but to reiterate, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and for those of you that just wrapped up Hanukkah, just enjoy this time. I know it's been a terrible year, 2020. But the good news is that Alabama's playing football in 2021 against Notre Dame, and that's not that far away. It's dead ahead. So for Andrew Bone, I'm Mick Gillespie. To all you guys, thanks for watching. Roll Tide.